So the Yukon Huskies won last night, or I'm losing track of days right now. They won, lost, was it last night or yesterday afternoon or yesterday evening, depending on what part of the world you're in, or today? No, there's nowhere it's today. If it was today in date, if you're in Australia, Australia's tomorrow. But yeah, so we got to talk about this because it's a kind of double. There's a double conversation to have about this, and it is about the ratings for these games. So the difference between the Final Four was huge. Like the Final Four, the fact is that the Final Four had some crazy difference in viewership numbers. Like there was a 71% drop off in the Final Fours. Final Four, 71% drop off between UConn UCLA versus UConn Iowa last year. And it's funny, this is from a thread with, I think it's Serena Williams' husband. She was basically saying, someone said it's literally driven by Caitlin, I bet money on it. And then they talked about potentially making the bet. And I don't think anyone would have thought it would drop this much. Well, I genuinely did think for UConn it was going to be about 5-6 million. I did, but at the same time, it's almost underestimating the Caitlin Clark mania. Like, everyone watched that game. Everyone who has ever watched a game of basketball in their life watched that game. It was bigger than the men's final. Everyone who has anything in basketball was watching that game last year. Whereas this year's game was just another game. A good game. Like, UConn were exceptional, but it was just another game. And this UConn team versus last year's Iowa team, that would be a battle. Like, that would be such a fun game of basketball to watch, because I think Stolke matches up as well with Strong as a lot of people. I think Gabby Marshall did a good job on Paige. I think Nika Mule did a good job on Caitlin Clark. I think that would be a really good matchup. But, yeah, so obviously there was a 10 million drop in the Final Fours. And in the finals, there was a 10 million drop. There were less people watching than when Caitlin Clark played the year before. So there is a common denominator. And my favorite thing is like, oh, the only reason Caitlin Clark's popular is because of Angel Reese. Caitlin Clark with it versus Angel Reese. Caitlin Clark without Angel Reese. Double the viewers. Literally double. And then, ironically, Caitlin Clark's Elite 8 had 10 million, then her Final Four. The next game against Caitlin versus Paige at 14 million. Like, anyone saying it because of Angel Reese is like, it is one of the craziest things. And that is not saying that it's solely Caitlin Clark, but saying that the reason why the record viewership happened in 2024 is because the player wasn't playing in the game. You better believe, had LSU won, if LSU had won against Iowa, not that it goes back to 4.5 million, but it probably goes to 6-7 million. Maybe. I think that's being generous. Maybe 7 million people. Way more than 2022 when it was. And in fairness to 2022, it was South Carolina, UConn. It's not like the 2022 final were bad teams. It was South Carolina, UConn, Aaliyah Boston versus Paige. They were all in there. And again, there is two ways you can look at these viewership figures. You can look at it one way and saying, yeah, NCAA is, women's basketball is significantly less attractive to viewers at this point in time without Caitlin Clark. But you can also say it's in a much better position than it was BC. So we've got AC and we've got BC. We've got before Caitlin and after Caitlin. The AC is in a much better position than BC. Let's go after AD, after draft. The before Caitlin was a lot worse. And in 2021, I think they would have thought 4.1 million was a decent amount for Stanford against, was it like Arizona or something? It was a mad one. But 2022, obviously UConn versus South Carolina. 2023, Iowa LSU. Then Iowa versus South Carolina. But yeah, it is one of those things, how many people, it wasn't just Caitlin Clark, it was all the good players. And that's the thing where it's like people have stayed in. People stayed to watch South Carolina. People stayed to watch Paige. It's just not that many. Like, it's funny it's the same with all the WNBA teams. When you look at it as a percentage, it's extremely small. The percentage of people that are just watching for Caitlin that stay for the other players. It is a small percent. As you can see, the percentage drop here, but the people gain. But you also take into account the people gain from here to here. And of the 4 million, UConn fans are already there. I'm sorry, there's not that many more UConn fans. UConn have always had their fans. South Carolina, in their defense, they've always had their fans. It is the casuals, the neutrals, the people that are just watching to watch. The fact that First Take, they're there wearing UConn jerseys. On like Andrea Carter? Someone was wearing a UConn jersey on First Take. Whereas you better believe like this game was definitely not spoken about on First Take. So all in all, you can tell it's in a really good position, but you can also shut up the argument that, you know, the game's still, that Caitlin isn't just bigger than the game. Caitlin is the rising tide that lifts all boats. The amount of fans she brought in is undeniable. But I do agree with that point, but there's also a point to be made that you can bring in fans, but there's but like these teams got fans to stay. And I do think there are some very interesting teams in women's college basketball, and UConn play good basketball. Like, as much as if you want to say whatever the hell you want about Gino, they play good basketball. Their ball movement's good. Sarah Strong robbed the most outstanding player. Look, I get it. AZ was better in the first half. Sarah Strong she is a flawless basketball player. She is a flawless basketball player who's not afraid of the moment and is aggressive. Like, you can't ask for that much more, to be honest. Paige Bueckers' only flaw is her mentality. AZ Fudd blows hot and cold. She was just hot, but this was an extremely good UConn team. And one of the things you always have to ask for when games have these big viewership is, will the viewers come tune in for more? And if you were a neutral fan, you wanted a tight ball game, you could argue maybe not. Maybe not in that regard. But if you were a fan of, if you just wanted to see one team play spectacularly, UConn are that. South Carolina were terrible. They were absolutely terrible. But UConn at least played spectacularly. But if we look at the previous finals, like the LSU-Iowa game was crazy. Like that was mad. Before all this type of stuff, it was a mad game. Like, I blanked on everyone's name coming off the bench and just nailing every shot she took for LSU. And then I stand by this. LSU-Iowa Part 2 is the most important women's basketball game ever because everyone showed up. Everyone that was meant to show up showed up. There were more people watching that game than watching the first one. More people watched the rematch. And the rematch was mental. The stuff, like, Caitlin Clark did some things to Hailey Van Lith that may have broken violated the Geneva Convention in that game. And then the UConn-Iowa game wasn't quite as good. Nika Mule did a great job on Caitlin. I think Iowa did a really good job on Paige. It was a more gritty defensive game. And I thought the final was really good last year too. Caitlin had her game, unbelievable first quarter. But like South Carolina were just too big, too strong, too athletic. And Raven Johnson played unbelievable defense. Like that steal layup right before the half was a huge play. And I do think that a lot of these female players, they've done a really good job of keeping people that have tuned in to watch staying there. Because, yeah, the intrigue to go there was from Caitlin. And while, yes, as a percentage, there's a big percentage that are just there for Caitlin. When you look at it as numbers, and especially compared to how it was before, it's in a really good place. But anyway, I'll see you guys.